All right, we're going to kick things off. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming to our webinar. If you're new to this webinar series, we are the Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center, and you're attending one of our free personal finance webinars. We are a free resource for the Penn State community, offering financial counseling and coaching, as well as education and resources like this webinar. So my name is Julie Heaton. I'm the director of the center. And today we're going to be talking and presenting around after graduation. Noting the timeliness of this, we're about a month out from graduation, and a lot of folks are starting to think about what their finances are going to look like after the big day. So a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. So if you have any questions throughout this, we like to answer questions as they come in, but also at the end. So use the chat function, it is open, or use the Q&A function, which is an additional tab in Zoom for you to ask questions. That's the one I'd recommend if you've got something you definitely want us to see, but the chat function is also open. Respond, put emojis in there. We love to see engagement throughout the webinar. If in the chat, I'm going to send a couple of links that are really useful to put out there right at the beginning if you have to leave early or you just want to navigate to some of our additional resources that we might mention. So one of them is our website. This is a great place to sign up for appointments if you want individual coaching. If you are looking for a recording of this specific webinar, you can go to our YouTube page, which is also going to be linked. I'll send all this in a second. And then finally, upcoming webinars. So if you like what you see here today and you want to learn more about many different topics, we'll send the events page to our webinar schedule. If you want to keep in touch, we're also going to be sending a listserv sign up where you can get emails about upcoming events from the center. So let me send that right now. So you've all got that in your pocket as we enter into this presentation today. So today is a really exciting webinar. Usually our staff delivers these webinars, but we are joined today by Aidan Kamowski, who is a special guest. Aidan is the operations supervisor for DHL Supply Chain. And more importantly, before his wild success in the corporate world, he was a student ambassador for our center. So Aidan's a Smeal College of Business graduate in supply chain management, but also a certified financial peer mentor who has helped so many students at Penn State navigate their finances during his years here with the center. So we're happy to have Aidan back to do a little cameo and guest appearance and share his now firsthand knowledge of life after graduation. So thanks to Aidan for being here, and we're going to hand it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Julie. Good afternoon, everyone. I am, more than excited to be back in the presenter seat, back with the center here and presenting for all of you this critical information after graduation. Funnily enough, I had actually done the same presentation 1 year prior before I had graduated. And upon, being invited back and coming to do this process, it's been a, really great moment to come back, reflect. And now that, 1 year removed, here I am again giving the same presentation, hopefully with a lot more great, wisdom and real life examples of ways that, implementing great personal finance and having financial literacy can benefit you in your life after graduation. All right, working on pivoting the slide deck here. All right, perfect. So what would life look like after graduation? Can I just please have all the people attending just take a moment to think about that and send it in the chat as well, if you can. Are you moving to a new city? Are you moving back home? Do you have a job lined up? Is the job search still enduring? Potentially graduate school, traveling, taking a year off? What does after graduation look like for you? Just take time to reflect on that and think to yourself. And if you would like to, please put that in the chat as well. All right, we're seeing lots of great engagement in the chat. Traveling, job search, definitely going great. Ooh, law school, that's exciting. I just finished watching Suits recently, so I know all about law school. I'm just kidding, but seeing all sorts of great stuff here. So thank you, everybody. I just hope that this moment can allow everyone to look, although we're all in the same, kind of position of after graduation, ultimately what that becomes for you can be totally different. You really just need to run your own race, not worry about everyone else is doing, and just focus on you and your life, whatever that may be. But irregardless of that, financial literacy is going to be a critical aspect for that mission. While we're still here at Penn State, though, a couple quick things that are important for everyone to be aware of. And definitely, as someone who went through the process, this is just one slide, but everything on it is really important. So please just heed the advice and do these small couple things to make that transition much more seamless. First, check all your requirements for graduation. Hopefully, if you are anticipated to graduate in May, you've already checked everything, you're all good, but just double check. Does not hurt. It is a super small thing, but critical. Updating your forwarding address and all information, super important. You want to make sure that that degree you spent 4 or more years working on, that you actually receive it in the mail. And it's a very exciting feeling eventually when it arrives. So super important there. Addresses are updated to whatever permanent address you would prefer to use. Recommendation letters. It's a critical step. Now is that point if you've fostered relationships with faculty or staff that you really want to capitalize on those and get those recommendation letters now when your memories of the accomplishments and things that you achieved together or worked with this person on are freshest in their mind and yours. And ultimately, finally there as well, update your information with any student loan lenders that you may have. Obviously, if you went to Penn State and took out student loans, now that you're graduating, it's time to repay those. And we'll circle back to that later in the presentation. But the first start to that is having all your information in order and ensure that you receive all updates and correspondence regarding those in the correct manner. Again, 4 quick things here at the start, but nevertheless, very important. Now, as we're sort of getting started, we're going to cover this presentation through the lens of 5 important tips for everyone to cover throughout all of graduation and the after graduation process. First, and most critically, start with a budget. We here at the center, and even those beyond the center and coming back, love to view the budget in a positive way. It's simply a plan that you make for your money so you can tell your money where to go rather than wondering where it went after you've already spent it. A budget is ideally not something restrictive, but something you use to implement into your life to allow you to balance between your future and your present needs, both your wants and your needs as well. Being able to allow your budget to afford things like, entertainment, food, travel is great, but it also needs to have room for things like rent, car payments, student loan payments, electricity bills, all of those things, both now and ideally planning ahead for the future. Things like retirement, home buying, potentially having a family, all things that you may consider having at one point in your life, and being able to prepare for those large expenses now can make the burden of them much less so. And the budget is how you can accomplish all of those financial goals. Now, for those who have never created a budget, no worries there. Super easy process. Here, just answering some lots of super active chat. That is all going great there. So thank you, Sarah and Julie, for handling that. It's kind of hard to keep up with, but I know they've got it. So if they have questions in there, they will definitely let me know. Got it under control. But back to the budgeting process. Again, a budget is just a plan to help keep your finances under control. And for those who have never done a budget before, super simple. And we like to go through this 5-step process. So first, when it comes to having a budget, it's really powerful and can be really helpful in moving throughout the process if you set a financial goal to help keep you motivated and your eyes on the prize for what the goal of this whole budget is. So can I just get some people to put into the chat some examples of financial goals? Would that be, saving up money for a security deposit for an apartment, saving up money to go take a trip somewhere potentially after graduation? Maybe you want to find a way to work your student loan payments into a budget and still live, a happy and fulfilled life. Whatever that is, goal, buy a house, that's definitely a big one. So let's send some examples of financial goals into the chat quickly. All right, lots of goals there. So that's all going great. So kind of all big picture goals, but it could be even something just as small as, wanting to go to a concert or buy a piece of clothing. It could be a big goal, it can be a small goal, but a budget is how you're going to achieve it. Setting a financial goal, great first start. Now finding a tool that you like. So we here at the center, I know we have our own budgeting tool we have that works great, that was independently developed. There's also tons of budget tools available. You know, you can look in the App Store, look online. There's tons of different ones. I know Rocket Money, You Need a Budget, other various companies. You know, we at the center don't specifically endorse any one, but plenty of options there available. Even something as simple as like a Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel or just old-fashioned pen and paper, whatever tool you like and you prefer to be able to do it, just find a tool that works well for you. Then critically identify your income and expenses. So first, income, things like your job, salary, if you have any side gigs, add all of that up. Then also all of your expenses, all of them. Your rent, utilities, groceries, car payments, and there's small things, Venmoing your friends for something, going out to eat, getting that Starbucks coffee, add all of it up together. And now here's the turning point moment. Subtract your expenses from your income. Now at this point, there's kind of three things that could happen. Either one, you have a positive number, meaning that you are making more than you're spending, which is great. Please proceed with the steps accordingly. But what's much more likely for people, especially with your first budget, that you may be right at even, which is also perfectly okay. That'd be very hard to get. But what's more common is that you may be spending more than you're earning and have not even realized it, which is perfectly okay. But it is important to change that, because if you do that over the long period of time, you'll end up going into debt, which isn't great. So being able to adjust your spending as needed to be able to get that budget to at least balance, or ideally have a little bit of money left over at the end of the month to be able to help push towards some of those financial goals that you set in the start of the process. And again, a great budget, I like to think, is a working document. You don't just create a budget once and then you're good for the rest of your life. A budget is an ongoing process through the many weeks and months until you eventually hone it and fine tune it right to your life, but definitely a work in progress. Any beginner questions sort of on budget there for everybody? All right. Yeah. Also, I'm seeing a lot of great things. One thing here, next slide, is prioritizing spending and highlighting, that once highlighting that, adjusting your spending as needed category. So when it comes to that, something of an activity we like to go through is determining whether purchases you're making are wants or needs. Can I get people into the chat just to throw in what is the last thing that you purchased and whether you define that as a want or a need? Just get everyone to throw some things in, see the kind of examples. All right, we're seeing food out, we're seeing food at home. Graduation regalia, yes, that was surprisingly expensive when I bought it, but certainly something important. All right, so we're seeing lots more things in the chat, which is great. And something I would just like to highlight is that, one, just because something, could be a want for someone, it could be a need for someone else. Like we see, someone said food, obviously a need, you need to eat, you need to do that to survive. But the type of food you're ordering could vary drastically. Door dashing food late at night, probably a want. Going to a grocery store, probably a need. But again, personal expenses are different from person to person. And I just want to empower you to be able to take control of your life. Something in someone else's life, that they may see as a want, you could view as a need. And I empower you to go through an individualistic approach to find what expenses are the most important for you, and then to be able to categorize them. Ideally, a budget allows you to meet all of the needs in your life and some of the wants as well. All right, now just doubling down on the budget, continuing. When you're creating your budget, something critical to think about, and when you're sort of planning out the income portion of it, is the gross versus net pay. So a super huge important thing, we'll just use the example of creating a budget after graduation. And say you have a starting salary of, say, $50,000. When you're building your budget, it is critical that you do not build your budget off of the gross amount, whatever you signed for in this example, the $50,000, that you instead build your budget after your net income, which is actually the money you'll be receiving. We like to say gross is the most. That's the amount, on paper that you are theoretically being paid, but your net is what you get. And that's the money you're actually going to be able to have deposited to you every single month. and that's what you should build your budget on. And the difference between the gross pay and net pay is just, as we see on the screen here, taxes and deductions. And that can be a considerable portion of your income. Can I get some people just quick guesses for what percent that you should estimate to remove from your gross pay for taxes and deductions in a percent form? 5%, 50%. Promise it's somewhere in between that range. Ooh, we're seeing some really exact, numbers in the chat. Love to see it. Some good friendly competition. Ooh, okay. So we're all kind of around the same number, which is correct. So estimate to have between 25 and 35% withheld from the chat. So great job, everybody. All great answers. And this is a really important thing to factor into when you're considering and making a budget, because if you're going out and determining how much, how expensive of a car you can buy, how expensive of an apartment or a house, or where to move, or what kind of lifestyle to have, you would not want to run into a situation where you start spending as if you're actually receiving 50,000, only then to realize after a couple of weeks that you're actually receiving, 25 to 35% less than that. And that could certainly get you into some hot water. So avoid that problem all out and focus on building your budget after your net pay, which is around 25 to 35% lower than the gross amount. Super critical step there. Now, any quick questions on budgeting as we sort of pivot to the next point here? All right. Sarah sent in some great resources about the online calculator. So definitely helps to calculate your net pay. I always like, before you actually start receiving the paychecks, try to go a little on the more conservative end of, higher than 30% or like that 30 to 35% just to play it safe. And then, you wouldn't want to have a shortfall at the end of the month. So always helps to play it safe there. Sarah, yes, what's going on?
So there's a question that came through in the chat. Can the percentage vary sometimes? And I think that's a worthwhile question to answer and maybe stipulate the difference between taxes and deductions.
Yeah, of course. So when it comes to the percentage, yes, it is, different for every person. It's kind of impossible to give you an exact number. That's why, we use the word estimates and again, calculators to help estimate. When it comes to taxes, obviously, if you make more money, you will be taxed a higher percentage of that. And there is a lot of, complicated math behind tax brackets, and there is, larger things behind that. But generally, the more you make, the more you will be taxed. So if you have any specific questions about taxes, I encourage you to reach out to the center staff. They have lots of great things that can help determine and explain that. But then the deductions, again, that's, individual to each person. Some people might have a health insurance plan through your employer that could cost a small amount of money or a lot. Some jobs I know have, you have to pay for parking out of your paycheck. A lot of, potentially some Penn State employees, I know hospitals, that's a very common thing to have deducted from your paycheck. Things like retirement savings ultimately are usually, deducted from your paycheck. So each portion of the taxes and deductions, definitely both of those can vary by individual. So it's important to get an individual approach, and something I would strongly encourage, making a one-on-one appointment for if you had any individual questions regarding that. But yeah, Sarah, any other questions, or think we're all good now? All right, great to hear. All right, so that's the budget. Again, key things. It's a plan that you make for your money to deter your money where to go rather than wondering where it went, and focus on building that after your net pay, after taxes and deductions around 25 to 35% lower. 2, negotiate your salary. This is something that I honestly had not considered too much during my, after graduation kind of process, but it is a critical step for you and for your career and financial journey throughout your entire life. Negotiating your salary is one uncomfortable conversation that could potentially make you $1 million. And that is true. The difference between, you negotiating that first salary, even if it's only a marginal change at that point, potentially the difference between a $40,000 salary and $56,000, not a huge difference at the moment, but exacerbated that change over an entire career could lead up to $1.2 million on potentially missed earnings just from avoiding this simple conversation. It's a critical step as well to addressing pay inequities across gender and racial lines, which are only exacerbated by people not advocating for themselves and not knowing, transparency around pay and salary. So advocating for yourself through salary negotiation is a critical step for everyone involved throughout the process. Although you probably have not negotiated a ton in your life, which is why people don't ultimately do it, is, you've never done it, so you just don't do it. But we're going to start everyone here negotiating their salaries and doing a great job with that through a series of steps. First, research market salaries. Second, prioritizing your negotiating points. 3, know yourself. 4, practice expressing your value. And 5, securing the offer. So we have an entire presentation on preparing to negotiate, which I would highly encourage everyone to review. Just again, 1 hour prepares you for this conversation. Basically, you want the process to have a couple different things. One, first, researching market salaries. Review the market and location for where the job you're doing. Are you working, engineering, education, business, whatever kind of job you have, research that. And also critically, location. That can play a huge factor as, someone who's doing, engineering in New York City will likely be paid more than someone doing engineering in rural Pennsylvania. So both the industry and the location play a big factor there in just setting a general guideline of what things could be at. Second, prioritize your negotiating points. Obviously, with a job, salary is kind of the first thing everyone thinks to negotiate, which is a critical step and an important part of your total compensation, although there are so many other things to consider as well. Things like paid time off, whether you could negotiate to potentially have more flexible, I know a lot of corporations now return to office is a huge thing, so maybe you negotiate from 3 days a week in office down to 2 days. You could negotiate potentially sign-on bonuses, relocation bonuses, all sorts of things that are available there beyond just salary. So just make yourself aware of everything on the table and what you need to be able to prioritize in that process. Third, know yourself. This is something I think that is, again, really critical for being able to, one, your first negotiation, but ultimately later on in the process as well. Something one of my managers told me is to start building a wins folder whenever you start your job or for things that you've already accomplished. So just, a Word document or even a piece of paper, just writing down all of the things that you're accomplishing and ultimately trying to tie those to some kind of either financial gain or, gain in some way. So maybe you worked on a project that saved the company $1,000. That's something that you did and you can know yourself and have that as a win for you. Maybe you did way more presentations at your job than anyone else, and that's a win. Try to find examples of ways that you're winning and succeeding in your role, and just building that folder up over time will really help for the next step of expressing your value. So being able to take those proven wins that you've had in the past and being able to express those in terms of an employer and why it should matter. Could go something like, ideally at the end of the process, and we'll circle back to that, but hey, I know that the posted salary online for this job is $50,000, although due to my experience with my, internship I had when I was at Penn State, I did such a great job and managed to save the company $1,000 a month in expenses due to the increase I had in the technical output of the production I was managing. And because of that, I think I deserve $55,000 a year. Practice some statements like that. And obviously, you would make it much more specific for your example or your company, but just the idea of, keeping a track record of the wins and being able to express that and provide a business case for why you should have that higher salary, have those additional days off, whatever negotiating point you're trying to argue for, having proof and facts over a long period of time can really help that process go a lot smoother. Even as, a new student just graduating, still things that you've accomplished. You're graduating, first check, great start. But if you've had an internship, if you've had class projects, if you've had any sort of thing that you'd like to highlight, great time to do that and start now, but certainly over your career, really double down on that as it's a critical step to expressing your worth and preparing the negotiation process to go far smoother. Ultimately, secure the offer. Ideally, the negotiation process is something that happens after you've been offered the job. Now, you shouldn't engage in a rigorous negotiation process after, the first interview, but instead wait for the company to express their interest and want in you, and then take the time to opportunity and pivot to the negotiation process and run through this and ultimately secure the offer. Sometimes, especially for first entry level roles, you may not be able to negotiate all of that much, but even, again, just that small increase in the start is worth something, especially over worth an entire career. Or, even if you don't ultimately gain anything materially from the deal, being able to negotiate and practice this process for those future jobs is a critical step as well. And just having the most information that you can and just practicing this skill as much as you can will really aid you long-term throughout your entire career. Again, lots of great things. Gender pay gap calculator. Thank you, Sarah, for sending that. PSU Alumni Career Services, all sorts of great things there. Really encourage you guys, if you have more specific questions on any of these things, come into the center. We have lots of great resources to really dive deeper on some of those topics you're sort of expressing interest in, but now it's sort of just a good overview to just sort of pique your interest. But thank you, Sarah. Great job in the chat. I'm really loving the engagement from everyone. That is so great to see. It's kind of hard to keep up. There's so much going on. So super great to see there from everybody. All right. Now on to step 3. So start saving and investing early and often. When it comes to investing, there's a lot of news and media of doing this or doing that, and it could seem overwhelming. But I would encourage you, investing is as simple as this: 1, start investing, and 2, early and often. And we'll demonstrate that principle through just a couple of the things that we have here. So in this hypothetical example, we're going to run who will have the largest investment return by the age of 65. Person 1, Talia, she invests $5,000 a year between 35 and 65, so kind of starts a little bit later, but really is consistent. Jess, in the middle, again, the same amount invested, $5,000 a year, but starts young at 25, goes until 35, isn't consistent, but got the young part. And Nate, the same amount, $5,000 a year, starts early at 25 and often, until 65, and ultimately, invests the most of $200,000. Can I just get some people into the chat super quick? Who do we think will have the most money at the age of retirement? Talia, Jess, or Nate? Let's just see some guesses in the chat. All right, we're still waiting on those. Things are going well. All right, so seeing lots of guesses in the chat, great thing. For everyone, waiting in eager anticipation, I won't, keep you going on too much longer. So here's how it breaks down. So 1, the person who came in with the most is Nate, who, started early and often, kind of the ideal scenario: start early, start often, and keep going throughout your entire life. And he invested the most money of $200,000. Best case scenario, early and often. But something that may surprise you, and something I'd really like to highlight and stress here, is the difference between Talia, who invested often, and Jess, who invested early. And Jess actually comes out ahead at $600,000 compared to Talia's $540,000. And even though Jess only invested a total of $50,000, really starting young was the key determining factor there. Talia did a great job, invested, 30 years consistently, a total of $150,000. But Jess, just by starting young, even with not that much money, ultimately comes out ahead. And I hope that this story can just prove to all of you that start early now, even if you think it's not that much money. Just start now. Really critical there. Obviously, if you keep going throughout your entire career, it can really make a big difference over time. And we would encourage that through a couple different things, but really just starting early is critical. Yes. Now, when it comes how to invest, starting early, starting often, consistently, specifically for retirement, really great goal. I know, especially the goals we highlighted, that was a thing that a lot of people brought up. So when it comes to it, there are really 2 main ways to invest specifically for retirement. Option 1 is an individual retirement account. When it comes to this, there's two different ways that this account can be taxed, which can make a big difference in the amount of earnings you would ultimately have in retirement. So option one is a Roth IRA, which is Roth Individual Retirement Account, where you contribute after-tax dollars, and then you have tax-free withdrawals. This is a really great option for the pro of one, you have, whatever amount you've invested whenever you eventually reach retirement age, and there's some specific rules around that, that all of that money is yours free and clear, all tax-free. You pay the taxes now when you likely will have less money than you will in the future and get them out of the way. Option two is the traditional IRA, where you contribute pre-tax dollars and then your withdrawals are taxed at the point with you withdraw them in the future. This has the benefit of, since these dollars are not being taxed, you're able to contribute far more because you're not first paying taxes on them. So whether you decide to have a Roth IRA or traditional IRA is, sort of specific advice that we can't offer at this moment, but both of them have really great pros and cons, and it really determines up to you and your specific situation determine what is best for you. Again, if you're thinking about opening an IRA, which is something you could do right now, if you wanted to, as long as you have earned income and you pay taxes, an IRA is available to you. And if you have interest in opening one of those, again, I encourage you to check out the center's resources, and they can help guide you to whatever option could be more appropriate for you. One last note about IRAs is that funds can be withdrawn for first-time home buying, and that can be a really, helpful thing, especially in today's market where housing seemingly is always very expensive. So investing for retirement, IRAs, option one, as long as you have a job, it doesn't have to be through your employer. You can just set it up all by yourself. And that is a great way to start investing for retirement as early as possible. There. Second type of main retirement investing vehicle is something like an employer-sponsored plan. So this is something that you couldn't open up by yourself. It's only available through your employer, although the vast majority of employers have some kind of retirement plan to help make that process easier for you. So the 401k, most popular type, that's something that's offered by private companies and businesses. And then also we have the breakdown of the 403b for public schools or nonprofits, and then the other types, state government, federal, all those kinds of things there. So whether you work for a private company or government, school, anything there, employer-sponsored plans are again another great resource to use. They have the same tax things of the Roth and traditional options for each of those. So again, I encourage you to meet with the center, discuss and review your options of which could be better for you. But it's just another avenue and opportunity for you to be able to invest for your retirement as early and as often as possible. And one key benefit as well of the employer-sponsored plan is that typically that they will offer a matching program where, for example, if you put in $1,000, they will put in an additional 100, up to some kind of percent. Usually between say 2 and 5% of your entire salary, your employer will put in there as long as you are to just help assist and really boost their retirement savings. So really great option, really great thing to review and utilize as part of your investment portfolio and for retirement as a whole. So I know there's a lot of stuff going there. A lot of really great stuff. Again, we have entire presentations covering investing and retirement investing, but just a really great, foundation to set the bones of start investing early and often. Consider things like an individual retirement account or an employer-sponsored plan, depending on whatever works best for you. But any quick questions here in the chat about just investing, retirement? I know there's a lot going on here, but just any quick questions from anybody? Oh, good. Julie's helping some stuff with withdrawals. Thank you, Julie. I appreciate that. Either Julie or Sarah, can we just get a quick like compound interest calculator link in the chat? That could really help just set examples of what could your investments look like, and you can just trial it out. So in the previous slide where it showed, $5,000 annually for this amount of years, you can plug in your own numbers potentially of say, hey, I'm going to invest, $200 a month for 40 years. What could that look like in the future? And really just experiment with, how much you're investing and your time horizon and really see what that could be for you, because it's likely a lot more money than you may think if you've never looked at it before. So I encourage everyone, check out a compound interest calculator. Really great option there. All right, kind of moving on now to step number 4, considering education expenses. So obviously, many, or I assume most of you or many of you are Penn State students or connected to one in some way. And as we all know, college is expensive, although it's a worthwhile investment in your career and lifetime earnings, as college graduates have on average earn $1 million more over the course of their entire career compared with non-college graduates. So it is expensive, but it's certainly a worthwhile investment. But when it comes to it, now, paying off any potential loans you may have taken out is a priority as well. Depending on the type of loan that you may have taken out, it could vary on how you will deal with them. So we're going to cover those a little separately. So first, for federal student loans, all loan information will be held only at the website listed there, studentaid.gov. That will hold all of your information regarding any loans that you received from the government. Typically, that would be things you filled out from the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. So all of your kind of loans managed through there. That's where you can get kind of information, make sure all of that is up to date and you're aware of all of that heading out of graduation. We again encourage you to use a loan simulator tool, again listed there below, to sort of help assist and estimate those payments and work those into the budget. Again, super critical step. Making an account with your loan servicer and understanding just your payment plans, your interest rates, all that kind of basic information. You can gather all of that there, the amount of loans, the total amount of loans you owe, all that information there. Again, also one last thing specifically for the federal student loans through the government is that there is a 6-month grace period post-graduation that you are able to delay payment if you would like to allow you just to sort of get your bearings in order. Again, just federal student loans specific there. There's lots of other intricacies with things going on there. Again, encourage you to reach out to the center if you have any more specific questions regarding loans. But now pivoting to private student loans, completely different ballgame, obviously still a thing of loans for education that must be paid back. But the payment plans or interest rates or specific details of that really vary from lender to lender. So we encourage you to log in with your loan servicer, find your repayment plans, and just really, gather that information as well. It just will vary based on where you applied or took those out from. So regardless of where you got them, working in your education expenses into your budget is a critical step, and being able to pay that back is important. And we'll cover that a little bit more in the presentation as well. Now, for those who are considering additional schooling, I saw a couple people in the chat, grad school, law school, whatever it is, there are multiple different ways to pay for those in addition to, obviously, student loans, which we'll cover later. So first, strongly recommend you considering any kind of fellowship or assistantship, which is a way that you can earn your way to be able to help pay for some or all of your additional schooling. Really great resource there, as you don't have to take out any loans. You would, work some kind of job or do some kind of work for the college, and you would be able to have a discount and have them pay part of the tuition. These could be potentially, thousands or tens of thousands of dollars worth of aid that is available. So I strongly recommend checking it out. I know a lot of people, 1 year after, that are in graduate school now that have fellowships or assistantships, and it can make the difference of, thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. So strongly recommend looking into it and applying for those if available to you. Also, potentially employer tuition reimbursement plans. So for people that maybe want to take, quick pit stop in the workplace first and then reconsider grad school at a later time, many employers will offer repayment for additional schooling as well. So if you maybe want to take a different path and still go to grad school, but on a different timeline, not immediately after undergrad, that is a great resource as well to understand and utilize. I know the company that I work with, that is something they offer as well. So I encourage that's something just to look into. Each company is different. The kinds of terms and conditions that go along with them paying for that are different. So if that's something you want to look into, encourage and ask about that and just understand, what applies. And then finally, just any additional grants or scholarships that are available. Again, all of these forms here are all forms of aid that you can help pay for school that don't cost you anything. and you just have to do some kind of work, whether that's applying or having some kind of job or remaining at an employer for a certain period of time. Whatever it is, strongly encourage all of these options before going to student loans. But if that is an option, graduate school is expensive and again, a worthwhile investment, but it is important to have all the information available to you as well. So a couple things here when it comes to graduate federal student loans. So a couple things we want to highlight is one, the graduate unsubsidized loans, the loans directly and specifically through the government, will first have the FAFSA, which is again the free application for federal student aid. Fill this out. It will not require a credit check, and the annual loan limit is $20,000 a year. Also highlighting that there is an aggregate loan limit between your undergraduate loans and your graduate loans. So if, for example, you already have, say, $30,000 in loans from undergraduate school, you could only then go up to that $138,000 total, including graduate school. So just important thing to plan out and figure out, if you have a longer program or have something that's more expensive, being able to work out and balance both of those as to not exceed the aggregate limit. Secondly, you have the Graduate Plus loan option, which is a different application than the FAFSA, and there will be a credit check, but does go up to the annual cost of attendance of the university. There's no, annual limit of $20,000. And for those, there is no aggregate limit. Those are all judged and weighed independently. A couple quick things additionally for student loans is that your undergraduate loans will remain in deferment as long as you're enrolled at least 6 credits of graduate school. So you're not expected, to go to graduate school and start paying your loans. There still will remain in deferment as long as, meeting those minimum credit requirements. And also that previously mentioned 6-month grace period for the federal loans is only offered once. So that is something that is to be made aware of as well. So if you take that 6-month grace period between undergraduate and graduate school, that then moving forward, that option may no longer be available to you as well. So, again, lots of super specific things. If you have questions on your loans and your situation, strongly encourage you meeting with the center, determining what kind of timelines or how a grace period could potentially work for you as well. Now, on to step number 5, building a strong financial reputation. So a super critical thing when it comes to managing your finances, especially after graduation, but really throughout your entire life, is your credit score. So a credit score is sort of like your financial GPA, and it's just a number that ranges between 300 and 850 and reflects how responsibly and how well you manage debt. A couple things your credit score does not factor into is your income, how much you're investing, how much you may have saved already. Are you negotiating your salary? Are you having a good budget? Lots of things credit score doesn't factor into that are other important aspects of your financial health. But when it comes to debt specifically and debt management, credit score is really the name of the game and the top factor there. The higher the score, the better. And it makes it so much easier and cheaper to buy or rent things like houses, apartments, cars, and especially for the houses example, and today's higher interest rate environment, the difference between having a exceptional credit score and a poor credit score will make the difference of tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of the loan for something like a house. So this is really something that you want to take top priority of, as it has real financial implications for you, and it's not super difficult to manage. So, we've expressed, credit score, it's important, it matters, and it can really make a big difference in either saving or costing you, hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially. So how do you know if you have one? So congratulations, if you have any kind of debt at all, you have a credit score, which is great. You're on this process to be able to help improve that and save lots of money in interest charges in the future. So if you have student loans, a car loan, a credit card, if you're on a parent's credit card as an authorized user, if you have any interaction at all with debt, you have a credit score, which is great because now you can take steps to improve it and help lower those interest charges or just, fees that you're being charged to borrow money and really help benefit your entire financial life. First, you want to get a good step of where you're starting at. So being able to check your credit score regularly is something important. So there's many different ways you can do it. Lots of mobile banking apps have your credit score reported. I know Credit Karma as well, another great resource, as well as the 3 credit reporting bureaus of Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion are all great ways as well to check your credit score and just start where you are now, and then understanding how to improve it for the future. Now, we've covered the credit score. It's important. It helps, either lower or raise, your interest charges that you will be assessed, when you're going to borrow money for some of these larger purchases, houses, cars. But really, what is it and what factors into it? So your credit score is broken down across, a couple of the factors here. Really, I want to highlight the 2 biggest ones more importantly. So one, your payment history. Are you making your payments on time and in full? Really critical steps there. Credit scores are something similar to, I know we said the financial GPA, but one small difference is, if you do bad in one test or one, homework assignment you maybe don't submit, or you do a poor job, it's not going to destroy your GPA. It's not a huge deal. You can recover as long as, don't keep doing that. But with your credit score, even missing just one payment could have disastrous effects on your credit score for up to 7 years, as that is the highest factor here. So strongly encourage you, please don't miss any payments. It will really negatively affect your score, and it's not a huge, impossible thing to do. So make those payments, really important. Secondly, when it comes to managing and improving your credit score for the long term, is the amounts owed, which is 30% of the score. This covers how much debt you owe versus how much debt is extended to you. And ideally, you want to remain under 30% utilization for how much debt that you have. So for example, if you have a credit card with a limit of $1,000, ideally you should be using no more than $300 on that card at any given time. This just shows to the banks and credit institutions that you are not a risky borrower, that you are, remaining restrained and, using only a small amount of your limit, and you won't be at risk of, not being able to make the payment. So ideally, under 30% is seen as a more positive amount, and using too much of your limit seems risky to banks. So make your payments on time and keep your payments or keep your balances under 30% of your total limit. And those are the 2 most important factors. Sarah sent in some great resources for checking out Credit Karma. Lots of great things there. So thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. And again, some other smaller factors that are important to the credit score, but just, not really the main things. Credit age is just how long you've had credit. So just kind of comes with age, nothing you can really do to speed that up. Credit type. So this is just about the diversified credit. So if you have, credit cards, house or mortgage for a house, car loans, student loans, that is something that affects your credit as well. And we wouldn't recommend, taking out a bunch of loans just to try to boost that type of credit. It's really something that just comes with the age and stage that you're in and just sort of naturally happens. And then as well, new credit as well is something that's factored. So, applying for too much credit all at once is seen as a negative factor, whereas, slowly applying for credit over months and years is really seen as more responsible, just so it doesn't seem at risk. And again, this credit score is just a number between 300, 850, and it just tells lenders about your credit worthiness and is assessed by the FICO Corporation, which is the Fair Isaac Credit Organization. And it's typically the number used by 90% of lenders there. So credit scores can vary a tiny bit based on where you gather it, but generally the same thing there being assessed. So when it comes to credit scores and managing debt, all this talking about debt, ultimately the goal is to pay it off. And doing that in a responsible way is super critical and can really make a big difference. When it comes to this, first, make a list of all your debts and interest rates, just so you know where you're starting at and have all information available. Second, understand your different options for repayment, which can vary drastically based on the kind of debt that you have. So for example, something like a mortgage is traditionally a 30-year payment, which is exactly the same payment every single month for 30 years. Student loan payments, again, the same payment every single month, traditionally for 10 years, whereas something like a credit card could have a varying payment every single month depending on how high of a balance you have. So understanding your payments, your interest rates, your payment plans for each type of those debts, important. And again, step number 3, circle back to the budget. It's really that financial foundation that all the other steps are built upon for a strong financial life, and being able to start making all of the minimum payments. As again, we said, making those minimum monthly payments is critical to maintaining a strong credit score. But then ideally, if you have any extra money, again, going back to the budget, adjusting your spending as needed, being able to prioritize and pay off those debts, picking a repayment strategy that works well for you is again critical. The 2 main strategies are something called the debt snowball, where you prioritize the extra money on top of the payments towards the smallest total balance of debt, which has the benefit of being able to have some psychological wins and pay those debts down, smallest to largest. And then you also have the debt avalanche strategy, which advocates that you should take that extra money and apply it to the debt with the highest interest rate and allow you to reduce your interest charges over time as well as you're paying down that quicker. Whatever strategy works well for you, it really depends. And again, strongly encourage reaching out to the center for any kind of questions or specific notes. And something that could help with this process is some of the resources we have at the center of the debt management worksheet. So, filling this out, working this into your budget, getting all the information together, really good priority, and just having everything in front of you can help make an informed decision easier. Now, on to the recap of the presentation. So first, refresh your budget. Again, a budget is a plan that you're making for your money so you can tell it where to go rather than wondering where it went, and focus on basing that off of your net pay once you subtract that 25 to 35% for taxes and deductions. Build your budget off of that, key critical step for everything else moving forward. Second, plan to negotiate your salary. Again, we covered why it's such a critical step now early in your career and over the course of your entire life. Really focusing on building, understanding the market, understanding yourself and the wins that you've been able to contribute to the business and the company, and then ultimately expressing your value to your employer and moving through the process. 3, save and invest for retirement and other future major expenses. So again, start early, even if it's not that much money now, and just keep consistently contributing throughout the course of your entire life, and consider investment vehicles for retirement, specifically of the individual retirement account and the employer-sponsored plans such as the 401k, 403b, 457, and determining which tax status of Roth versus traditional, really up to you and your individual situation. But I encourage you, again, research more into it and see the pros and cons of each of those for your applicable situation. 4th, create a student loan repayment plan and identifying funding sources for future grad school expenses, if that applies to you. Again, furthering education, undoubtedly a worthwhile expense, but ultimately being able to manage that in a responsible way and pay that off, really critical steps there. And finally, build a strong credit reputation through making all of your minimum monthly payments on time and in full. And then also using no more than 30% of your available limit at all times. So again, $1,000, $300 or less in that situation. So any other quick questions we're seeing, just sort of as we're sort of wrapping up here, 5 big bullet points, 5 great bullet points for after graduation. Anything coming to mind? Just sort of giving people a quick second to have some time. All right, well, Sarah and Julie, I know we'll keep monitoring the chat. So if anything pops up, please, we will cover it then. Now, how can the center help you? So center here, Julie, Sarah, lots of other great people that aren't on the webinar right now, but a whole great team here to really help and assist you with an individualized, catered approach to whatever financial questions or concerns or stresses that you might have. First, I'm going to plug the one-on-one appointments that you can book via Starfish. If you haven't already made one before graduation, please just book one. It's a really great service that I promise you after graduation, something that could cost you potentially hundreds of dollars an hour to meet with someone to get this same kind of individualized and catered approach. Group presentations and webinars, you're all very familiar with at this point. So keep engaging with that, keep engaging with the center, lots of great presentations to come. Self-study modules via Canvas, a lot of great resources there to get a more asynchronous learning on your own time. And lastly, the Financial Wellness Bookshelf, which if you come check us out in Grange Building, which is right next to the hub, lots of great resources available there as well. And if you scan the QR code, that will sort of take you to the other resources the center has available through the website. So now just getting to the end of, we would like your feedback. If you scan this QR code, it will go to a survey on today's presentation, and just any sort of tips or tricks or things that you'd like to see in the future, we really appreciate it. A lot of the things incorporated into today's presentation was as a result of the feedback that we received. So we really appreciate that. Here, Sarah, quick question. What's going on?
Just a quick point of clarification for this survey. So Julie, I think, has the link to the survey that we'd like you guys to fill out. Don't use the QR code only because it's for a different survey.
Okay.
So stick the QR code on this slide. Be on the lookout for the survey in the chat from Julie, and that is where you guys can, perfect. That is where you guys can let us know your thoughts. Thanks, Aidan.
Yeah. Sorry. So avoid the QR code. Small clarification, gone for a year. You never know what'll happen. Chat link, please fill that out if that's something that applies to you. And sort of, let's get back to the presentation. All right. Now, sort of on the last slide, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate, everyone coming here today. Hopefully, the chat's been very active. Everyone's been able to gain a lot of value from this. Thank you, Julie and Sarah and the entire Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center team for bringing me back for this. I hope that this has been great for all of the students and faculty and staff members and everybody watching that could be watching. Now just, I guess, a couple quick notes. I loved my time at Penn State, great 4 years. Now 1 year removed, just some personal, Aidan after graduation advice, not about finances. So one, college is a great time. You should enjoy it. It's such a small period in the grand scope of your entire life. Really enjoy it and live your moment that you have now. Although I do have to say, unpopular opinion, after grad might be even better. Assuming, you've done a great job in college, you're able to land either that job or continue in the search or land that graduate school gig. This is the time that all the things that you've been working for your entire life can finally come true. You've been working to get this degree, to get the job, to get that master's degree, to go on those further things. And the further things are here. So I encourage you, keep going through graduation, go through finals. You're almost there. As soon as you're on the other edge, I promise you, it actually might get even better. So keep going, stay motivated there, and manage your finances in a way that allow you to live your best life. Something we highlighted at the beginning of the presentation is that everyone's wants and needs really vary. And that is definitely an experience I've seen in my life. I know that for me, traveling, going out to eat, going to concerts is a really high priority for me. And as a result of that, I've made other different choices, like driving an older used car. I know other friends who they went out and bought a brand new car right off the lot, amazing, a larger truck, but they don't really value, the concerts or traveling as much. Please take your own individualistic approach, live your own life, run your own race. Everyone's life after graduation, it goes super fast. And I encourage you just to take some time, smell the roses while you're in it, enjoy that after graduation life, all the dreams that you've been working towards, you've now been able to achieve them through graduating and, really do all the great things that you've been working on. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate this. For those students still in college, I encourage you, graduation comes a lot sooner than you think. Those 4 years do really fly by. So enjoy the moment while you have it, really gain so much from this experience because Penn State's a great place with lots of things to offer. And, once after graduation comes, I encourage you to come back to this presentation. It's a lot of good stuff here too. But thank you, Julie and Sarah and everyone in the chat. Kind of here right at the ending time. If anyone has any remaining questions or concerns, we'd love to be able to address those now. But if not, that is everything for me. Back to you, Julie.
Thank you. I feel like a broadcaster. Back to you, Julie.
Yeah.
Aidan, thanks so much.